data access. This part already we have studied actual, but again we are going to see it in short. So data access or database, we always see the definition of blocks, that the database is partitioned into fixed length storage unit. We call it as a block. Means if this is a database which is stored on the disk, then it is partitioned into blocks. If this is block A and this is block B. Okay, so we call these as a blocks. Now, physical blocks are those blocks which are reside on the disk. So which are on the disk? Sorry. Physical blocks are the blocks which are reside on the disk. The block which are on the disk, we call it as a physical blocks. We call it as a physical blocks. And the blocks which are in main memory, we know that in main memory some blocks are stored. For which purpose? To avoid the disk transfer. So the blocks, as many possible blocks are kept on the main memory. So what we call that area of main memory where the blocks are kept? We call it as a buffer, where the disk blocks are stored. We call it as a buffer, correct? So disk buffer are the area of main memory where blocks are reside temporarily. For which purpose? To avoid the block transfer from disk to main memory and main memory to disk. Some of the blocks are kept in the main memory as much as possible. These blocks which are stored in main memory, the blocks which are stored in main memory, these are known as buffer blocks. What we call it as a buffer blocks. So the blocks which are kept on the disk are known as physical blocks, and the blocks which are kept in the main memory are known as buffer blocks. Is it clear? That part already we have studied. Now, whenever we execute any instruction, the transaction or execute any instruction, some kind of block movement is required. Means the blocks need to be transferred from disk to main memory and main memory to disk. For example, I execute an instruction, select star from instructor. Suppose I execute the instruction, select star from instructor, and the instructor information is stored in this block. The instructor information is stored in this block, and this block is on the disk, not is in the main memory. But where it is executed? It is executed only in the main memory, and that's why this block where the instructor information is stored need to be transferred from disk to main memory. So what operation is used for it? Input A. Transfer the physical block A from disk to main memory. Transfer the physical block A from disk to main memory. And once the block in that instruction is executed, its work is finished. Then that is again returned back to the disk using different buffer replacement policies that we have also seen. Last in first out, first in last, whatever that we have seen. Least minimum used, all these buffer replacement policies. Toss immediate, that most recently used, that all policies already we have studied. So using these policies, the block whose work is not there on the main memory, not required in the buffer, that is output back to the disk. So for that the operation is used output B. What it performs? Transfer the buffer block B from main memory to the disk. From main memory to the disk. Using any buffer replacement policies if it is required. Is it clear to everyone? This part? Yes or no? Is it clear to everyone? Okay. Now, remember these two instructions, input and output. So, input is the instruction which transfer the physical block from disk to main memory, and output is the instruction which transfer the buffer block B from main memory to the disk. Okay. Now, we move towards the transaction. So, already I have told that every transaction when it starts its execution, its local area is created temporarily. So each transaction Ti has its private work area in which the local copies of all data item access are updated by it are kept. So Ti, if a transaction Ti, the local copy of the data item X is known as Xi. So that is shown here in this diagram. This is disk, correct? Where the database is stored, all the blocks are there. This part already we have studied. Now when the transaction start its execution, in the main memory it always executed. So here it creates its own work area. Transactions work area. So for transaction T1 we consider it is its work area. For transaction T2 we consider it is its work area. So the transactions work area, this T1, whatever the copy of this data item X, it is known as here X1, Y1. For transaction T2 it is known as X2. So the transaction this value is used there. Okay. So transferring the data item between the system buffer block and its private work area is done using two instructions. Read X and write X. So what it performs? See here. Suppose I execute the transaction, read the value of A. Okay. Read the value of X, I say here, because blocks are given as A and B. So read the value of X. X is equal to X plus 100. And then perform write X. Suppose this simple transaction I executed, that is transaction T1. Now when this transaction is executed, actually how it executes in this entire database. Now this X data item, the data item what the transaction T1 is going to access? The data item X. Now transaction check. It starts with its work area, it check whether the data item is available with any of the block in this buffer. If it is not there, if the X is here, then first input A is executed, means the transfer the physical block A from disk to main memory. Transfer the physical block A from disk to main memory where the data item X is stored. So it comes here A. Now data item X is available. Now it is in the main memory buffer, need to transfer from this buffer to the local area or work area of transaction T1, and for that the instruction is read X. So when this instruction is executed by transaction read X, this X is transferred from buffer to work area of transaction T1 as a local variable X1. As a local variable X1, perform the operation here, X is equal to X plus 100, and write means write this X1 back to this here or here. Okay, write X, transfer this updated value of this data item X back to the buffer, and if required output it to the disk. Is it clear to everyone? Yes or no? Is it clear? See once again, suppose I want to execute these three instructions for this transaction. Read X means which data item is required? X. If it is not in the buffer, first it execute input a block where X is available. Then these blocks comes here A. Then this X need to be transferred to the work area of transaction. So transaction execute read X. Perform the operation here in the work area. Once it is completed, write it back to the buffer with write X. And if required, it is transferred back to the disk using output A. Using output A. So in this way, actually data is accessed by the transaction, the data buffer and the disk. So with this simple example, I think everyone clear with this concept.